Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Can you all see and hear everything okay? Okay, great. Um, so just to introduce myself quickly, my name is Sunvi. I work with the Office of Sustainability, um, coordinating our outreach programs, and I'd like to take a moment for the rest of the staff on the call to quickly introduce themselves. So Lisa, if you could go first and then have the interns on the call introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Lisa Alexander. I am the Sustainability Coordinator for the Department of Resident Life, and I help co-run the Green Terp Program.
I can go next. I'm Emma. I'm one of the outreach and engagement interns working with the Office of Sustainability this semester. I'm a junior majoring in environmental science and policy and helping with everything going on there.
Hi, my name's Paige. I'm another outreach intern for the Office of Sustainability. I'm a senior double majoring in history and government and politics with a minor in sustainability studies.
Okay, wonderful. So I will quickly introduce a little bit more about Sustainable UMD and then introduce our guest speaker for today. So Sustainable UMD and the Office of Sustainability strives towards the just and ethical integration of social, environmental, and economic solutions to ensure that all people can thrive both now and in the future. Recent and current events illuminate anew that Black Lives Matter, positive change is possible, and we're stronger and more resilient when we work together. We will continue to learn, grow, leverage our skills and resources, and expand our partnerships this academic year to create an increasingly just and sustainable UMD. Our presenter for today on our topic of energy is Mark Stewart, who helped launch the Office of Sustainability in 2007. He leads efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, administers the University Sustainability Fund, and runs programs that prepare students to be change agents for sustainability. He earned a sustainability certificate from Harvard University, a master's degree in higher education policy and leadership from UMD, and bachelor's degrees in environmental science and organizational psychology from UMBC. During this presentation, please submit any questions that you have in the chat box, and we will try to get to all the questions during the Q&A section at the end and follow up with any remaining questions afterwards. All right, so Mark, you can take it away from here.
All right. Well, thanks, Dunby, and thanks everyone for joining today. So I'm Mark. Happy to take questions, through this presentation in the chat, or just feel free to unmute and chime in if you want. I'm going to give you a very basic overview of the issue, which is probably painfully familiar to many of you. We'll have a little bit of time for some smaller group discussion so that you can get to know each other a little bit better. And then where I'm going to focus when we come back from sort of a little intro period that we built in here, where I'll focus when we come back is really on strategies to implement the low carbon, healthier energy system that we need, and specifically how Marylanders can help implement that. So some of the tips that I have are specific to Maryland, but I should note that many other states have some of the similar programs that I'll be referencing. So if you don't live in Maryland, this content is not exclusive just for Marylanders. Much of what I'm going to mention is also certainly eligible in DC if you happen to live in DC, and beyond that. So as the slide here shows, and what you all probably already understand, is that most energy use in the human economy comes from fossil fuels. It's worth noting that most of the energy use for the rest of the natural economy on the planet comes from solar radiation. The human economy is fairly unique in the world of ecology in using fossil fuels as our primary source of economic energy. Next slide. Of course, using fossil fuels has some significant implications. Looking first at extraction, this is an image of mountaintop removal, which is an issue that is affecting our region. This picture specifically, if I remember correctly, is from, was taken in West Virginia, where mountaintop removal is literally changing the landscape, affecting communities downstream. Next slide. It shows, one very sad reality that coal mining is one of the deadliest jobs in the world. One, because of some issues that we've seen in the mines where mines have collapsed, but also because of black lung. These workers are in environments where it's all too easy to ingest some of that direct particulate matter that influences their lungs. And then if you go to the next slide, we look further downstream at combustion, and some of the same pollutants that are affecting the coal miners fairly directly wind up affecting us directly in the air that we breathe. If you go to the next slide, wanted to point out that direct environmental impact on us by breathing the air that results from fossil fuel combustion kills 1 out of 8 people globally. The DC area, this photo is a smoggy day in DC. Our region does not rate very high for clean air. So this is an issue that affects us here locally, but of course in many places around the world. And then if you go to the next slide, more generally, of course, with all of the CO2 emissions that are associated with the combustion of fossil fuels, we are rapidly changing our climate system, and that has tremendous implications for us and the rest of life on our planet. So some of the focus where I'll spend a little bit of time when we come back from our small groups, if you want to go to the next slide, is really a focus on shifting this curve, right? On meeting what the international community has basically laid out as a trajectory for the planet through the Paris Climate Agreement that basically says we need to figure out how to dramatically decrease global climate emissions to prevent catastrophic climate change. Now, frankly, most of the science and recent science has confirmed that we are not likely. It's nearly impossible to meet even the 2 degrees of warming threshold. The new low case threshold is closer to 2.5 degrees Celsius. But the point is, and actually maybe that's even more to the point, we need to immediately and dramatically begin to shift the way that we use fossil fuels and reduce global emissions. And some of the pointers that I'm going to have for you and general information about the way that the global energy system is likely to head and needs to head is what I'll touch on when we come back. Okay, so I want to give you a quick overview of what energy looks like in the U.S. economy. And this is a complicated diagram, so I apologize for that, but it's one of the best that I've seen to really help kind of illustrate a few really critical things. One thing that this shows is currently, this is total US energy consumption in 2019, so fairly recent data. And if you look at the portion of electricity that was produced by solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, still relatively small. So we have a long way to go in the United States for replacing our energy use, replacing the fossil fuel energy use with renewable energy use. Natural gas and petroleum here are 2 of the major energy sources going into our economy. With natural gas, a little less than half of it is going into electricity generation. The rest of it is mostly used directly in buildings, residential, commercial, and industrial facilities for high heat or low heat applications in those buildings. With petroleum, you see that the vast majority of petroleum products are used for transportation. But one of the things that I think is really remarkable about this is look at the rejected energy. Look all the way over on the right side. 2/3 of all of the energy that enters our economy is wasted. It's wasted in the form of heat. You know, look at transportation. Only 80% of the fossil fuels that are used in an internal combustion engine for a vehicle, only 20% of that is for moving the vehicle. 80% is wasted. With rejected energy from electricity generation, this is one of the big opportunities that we have with renewables, is that, you know, wind and solar are much more efficient. There's very little waste to these renewable energy systems. When you look at fossil fuel generation of electricity, you've got a tremendous amount of waste. There's a small fraction of the total energy that goes into the system that comes out in the form of electricity on the other end. And then, you know, so some of the tips that I have in the next few minutes will look fairly narrowly at, like, what can you do at home? So that residential box, that pink residential box, you know, we've got a lot of natural gas use in homes. We're going to talk about that. And we have a lot of electricity consumption. But I want to just point out that a lot of the initiatives, you know, if you live in Maryland, you might know the Empower Maryland program. And if you live in other states, there are a lot of programs that focus on reducing electricity use at home. And that's very important. But we're also sort of shifting our mindset into, you know, is it most important to reduce electricity consumption as the electric grid becomes more renewable? In fact, more people are having the opportunity to go renewable in their energy supply or at home. You know, or is it some other forms, like, is it decoupling from natural gas consumption at home and improving the thermal efficiency of your home so that it's using all forms of energy more smartly? So it's, you know, one thing I just want to point out is not just about electricity efficiency and conservation, which admittedly is right now the focus of the Maryland Energy Efficiency Program called Empower. But that's getting into the weeds a little bit. Let's step back out and look at what's the solution. So I'm going to hope this works. I embedded a video. So some of you, if you want to try and show the video, if this doesn't work well, then I'll just send you all the YouTube link, and then we can all sort of branch off, watch it. It's a 3-minute video, and then come back. But fingers crossed.
Sadly, people have the impression that we can't fix climate and still have the American dream. That's not true. The reality is we only need half as much energy as we think, and we don't have to shrink our cars, we don't have to shrink our homes to achieve that. Right now you think that sounds too good to be true, but here's how you make it true. We need to electrify nearly everything. In 2018, I worked with the Department of Energy to map the entire US energy system, where energy comes from and where it goes. Everything from how much energy your toaster uses to how much energy it takes to make steel. It is really amazing just how much energy is wasted. The wasted energy we're talking about isn't really the wasted energy of forgetting to turn your kitchen light off. It's in the way we make and produce energy. More than 60% of the fuels that we use to generate our electricity get wasted as heat. More than 80% of the energy we stick into our cars in the form of gasoline or diesel is also wasted. If we electrify everything, we eliminate a huge amount of the waste. We don't need to shrink our cars, we don't need to turn the thermostat down, and we use less than half of the energy we currently do. We've got to electrify our trucks and our cars, we've got to electrify our homes, our furnaces, our hot water heaters, even the way we cook. And then we need to supply that electricity with our clean, non-wasteful sources, with wind, with solar, with hydro, and with other clean energy systems. And if we did that, we're going to save every business and every home money. Wind and solar are the cheapest forms of electricity going onto the grid today. Solar on your roof can be the cheapest energy source that we have ever had. If we use all of this cheap energy, there's an opportunity here for us all to save money while improving our energy systems. Think about that for a second. The future can be awesome. We can have cleaner water, we can have cleaner air, we can have cleaner skies and a better environment. And we can save thousands of dollars per year in every household. Why do I know America can do this? It's because America, uniquely in the world, has a history of taking on audacious projects. Solving the Great Depression, fighting World War II and winning it for the Allies, launching man into outer space. If America goes bold and big in that manner, and we do it focused on electrification of the economy, we can be the first country in the world to truly address climate change at scale and on the time frame we need. America is blessed with incredible resources and can easily run on clean and renewable electricity. America can be electric. Our future can be electric. Let's rewire America. Sadly, people have the impression that...
And I put the link in the chat if you want to look at that video again later. His organization, Rewiring America, also has some other good content on their website and video. But you know, the Natural Resources Defense Council has information out that largely resembles what you just heard in that video, which is the path to US decarbonization looks roughly like this. Focused on energy efficiency, right? We need to be more efficient in our use of energy at the end use and in the way that we produce electricity. Clean electricity, obviously we need to shift from fossil to clean electricity sources. And then electrification, we've got to electrify our fossil fuel end uses. And I'm gonna talk about what that looks like at home specifically. So next slide. So I'm trying to package this into a simple 4-step plan. And 2 of these steps are things that you can do today. Like literally, I'm asking you to do it today for your own homes. And some of the focus here is again on Maryland programs. If you don't live in Maryland, check your local resources, your state resources, because these sort of programs exist for many other states. So the first step here, next slide, is to shift your home energy use to 100% clean electricity. And most people, when they think about this, they imagine needing to install solar panels on your roof, but there's a much easier way of doing it. If you can install solar, go for it. It has some huge cost benefits to going solar at home. But if you can't do that, if you're a renter or a homeowner, but you've got trees or other reasons why on-site solar doesn't work, every single person who pays a utility bill in Maryland can switch to 100% clean electricity right now. So if you go to marylandelectricchoice.com, which is a little bit of a overwhelming website, but you go there and that's letting you, it's hosted by the Maryland Public Service Commission, and it's orienting purchasers, utility customers, toward the third-party suppliers for electricity. And when you're searching, you can search for the companies that are offering 100% renewable electricity. And check, always be conscious consumers. Check references and see which companies are well regarded in this area. But there's no reason for anyone in Maryland or any of the other states that are deregulated and allow customers to choose their electricity sources to not go for 100% renewable energy today. The state of Maryland, I serve on the Maryland Commission for Climate Change, so I can tell you a little bit about where the Maryland is heading on this. Maryland is roughly planning and is planning this legislative session to firm up its law on this. But basically, all grid supplied electricity in Maryland should be 100% clean by 2040. So we're on this trajectory over the next 20 years where for everyone, whether you opt into renewable energy or not, you'll have clean electricity, but you don't have to wait 20 years to get there. You can do this today by simply signing up for clean electricity at home. Next slide. the energy efficiency part should not be overlooked, and there's so many opportunities to save energy at home. I could go through the rundown of the most common ways to save energy, but what I instead recommend is that you participate in your utility sponsored program to find those opportunities, and they can actually tell you kind of how cost effective this, adding weather stripping around your windows and doors, or adding insulation in your attic, and otherwise improving the thermal performance of your house, or switching out old inefficient equipment for more efficient equipment. A home energy audit is a very useful tool for everyone. Now, this one is more oriented toward homeowners. If you're a renter, this is probably not a program that you're likely to take advantage of. But if you live at home, if you want to share this information with parents or anyone who owns a home or business in Maryland, look into these utility sponsored programs and have an energy assessment done on your home. Next slide. So the next two are more oriented at long-term change. What I'm hoping that you can do is go ahead and make your own personal commitment today that when you replace your equipment, or on the next slide, I'll talk about vehicles, when these things are ready for replacement, replace them with electric alternatives. So what that looks like in the home, it really comes down to these three appliances. Your heating system, right? And in this case, a heat pump system, which is taking energy out of the air or ground outside and just transferring that heat or cooling to the inside. A heat pump serves your heating and cooling needs, right? So it's one heating and cooling system. It's a heating and cooling system in just one solution. And some recent analysis by the U.S. Department of Energy shows that in Maryland, for homes that are heated with oil or propane, nearly 100% of those homes could cost effectively switch to an air source heat pump and save money. For homes that are heated with natural gas, if you have an air conditioner system near the end of its life and a natural gas furnace near the end of its life, for about half of those homes in Maryland, it's cost effective to switch to an air source heat pump. A ground source heat pump is always more cost effective and more efficient, but there's some additional upfront cost, although there are federal and state and local rebates available for ground source heat. So look into those. Heat pump water heaters without rebates can pay back in about 6 years on their initial investment. In Maryland, there's currently a $500 incentive through the electric utilities for installing a heat pump water heater. So this is that's sort of a no-brainer replacement, replacing your old natural gas or especially electric resistance water heater with a heat pump water heater. And then induction range, this is cooking with electricity, but not in the way that you might be familiar with electric coil resistance cooktops. Induction ranges can boil water faster than you can boil water with natural gas. And of course, they're eliminating some of the indoor air quality pollutants associated with cooking with natural gas. Turns out that homes that cook with natural gas, especially for children who live in those homes, they're much more likely to have asthma and other respiratory diseases because of those indoor air quality issues associated with poor ventilation. There's a long history to this about why cooking equipment is not adequately ventilated, but that it's a very real public health issue for many homes. So for climate and public health reasons, induction cooking is the healthier choice. All right, and then the last part here is on my very quick tips to implement electrification is focused here on your vehicle. Many of you may not drive, and let me just say kudos first and foremost if you've organized your life in a way where you do not need to own your own private vehicle. Great, like you're in for the win. Hopefully you're walking, biking, taking mass transit. By doing that, you're living a healthier lifestyle, a lifestyle that's common in a lot of places around the world. But in the United States, we have a very car-centric geography. So for obvious reasons, you know, a lot of people own cars. If you own a car, if you plan on owning a car in the future, make a commitment now that your next car will be an electric vehicle. Electric vehicles today are they have about a 5-year payback period. So there is a higher upfront cost for that electric vehicle, including the incentives, but you pay about 1/4 as much in fueling the car, and most estimates say about, you know, a third less on maintaining the car. So there's some savings there. By 2025, it's expected that a new electric vehicle will have the same purchase price as a comparable gas-powered car. And so by the later half of this decade, what we're looking at is that the electric vehicle is simply the cheaper car to buy, and it provides instant savings on you know, the cost of gas and maintenance. And that's some of the reasons why when you look at these trajectories in terms of electric vehicle adoption, they really, really ramp up in the later part of this decade. And some states like California have said that they're not going to sell, they're going to ban the sale of new gas-powered cars by 2035 statewide. And partially that's because they know that by 2025, the electric vehicle is likely to be the more cost-effective solution in any case. All right, and then next slide. Oh, we're on to the poll already. All right, good stuff. So just so you know, we're going to do a quick poll, and then I think Thunby's got a little bit of information about the Green Terp program, and then we're going to come back and do a little bit of Q&A time. So, oh yeah, so I guess I should talk through the poll. So you have the options in front of you. Does this seem more achievable now? And do you try to be mindful of your energy choices? It looks like we've got lots of participants right now. So some good, seems like we've had a little bit of impact through this presentation, thinking that, you know, the potential of eliminating fossil fuels in our economy maybe is a little bit more achievable than some of you might have realized at the top of the call. It's for good reason that half of you are still skeptical on this issue. As I was talking about with my little breakout group earlier, you know, on one hand, we've got economics working in our favor. We've got new renewable energy facilities are more are cheaper to install and operate than new fossil fuel facilities. So as I mentioned, the economics of electric vehicles. So the economics are working in our favor, but of course there are some very, very powerful interests that are very, very committed to seeing that the fossil fuel industry continues to thrive and survive. You know, a little bit of insider baseball here. The Climate Commission in Maryland this year was debating a recommendation to require that all new homes built in Maryland by 2025 would be all electric. That means that a new home would be built automatically with a heat pump system, either air source or ground source, heat pump, water heater, and induction cooktop. And perhaps you could guess how much pushback that got from the fossil fuel industry in the state. So, you know, we have a long road ahead to implement the sort of policies and laws to really allow the economics of some of these solutions to be able to work in our favor. And it looks like a number of you are very aware of your energy choices and mindful of how to reduce energy. I think that we have, Thunby might, or one of the interns might be running through some of the tips that we have to you know, simple things that you can do at home. So actually with that, how about I turn this over to Thunby so that we can talk through some of the Green Terp tips.
Sorry, I was muted. Thanks, Mark. So the Green Terp Program is a way that any students can make a commitment and get a whole list of ways that they can be sustainable in their day-to-day lives that they can do immediately and for free wherever they happen to be living. And you can do that now. You can just hop on your phone or on another tab over to greenterp.umd.edu and click on commit and just make that commitment. You'll receive a checklist with 7 different categories with 28 different ways to take action. You only have to pick 10 ways. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit about a few of the energy actions. We have 4 actions per category. So we'll go over really quickly what are immediate things you can do every day to help save energy. Also, if you do sign up for the Green Terp program, you can receive either reusable bamboo straws or reusable steel straws or reusable bamboo utensils that come in a Green Terp carrying case, which Lisa is showing us. Right now, we're able to deliver those to folks who are on campus, and for those who are off campus, when you come back to campus, we'll get those to you. And that's after you certify. So you receive the checklist, decide which things you want to implement, and then verify that you've made those changes in your life. So we hope that you will take a moment to just take the pledge that you will adopt sustainable choices in your daily lives, and that you will then go on and use the reusable utensils that you receive. If you already have reusable utensils and straws, you can also just donate instead, or if you just don't want more things. So here are the 4 ways that we'll be talking about in order to conserve energy. So turning off the lights, I think, is something that's often overlooked on campus because there's so many common spaces in residence halls and classrooms, conference rooms, that people don't necessarily feel ownership for. And lights just get left on all night, every night, and it actually accumulates to be a lot of wasted energy. That's a great thing to be mindful of on campus. Any light bulbs that you do have, rather than using an overhead light, you can use a task lamp and switch it out to an LED bulb. They're super affordable at this point, and they save 75% more energy than a traditional incandescent bulb, and they last 25 times longer. So it's a great change to make so that you're saving energy every day. And then just setting your technology to automatically sleep. I noticed on the poll, not a ton of people were doing this. So maybe you already manually shut off your computer, your laptop, your printer, your gaming consoles, or whatever you're using. But if not, just if you set those energy saving settings, you can save energy every day. And don't use screensavers because that actually doesn't save any energy and it's not needed with our modern monitors. So just set it to sleep or hibernate so you're not just drawing that energy nonstop because that adds up as well. And then fridges are actually a big suck of power. So a lot of people who live on campus might be getting a mini fridge. If you're able to like share a fridge or use a communal fridge, that's actually gonna save a lot of energy. If you are living in more of a residential home and there's an extra fridge in your garage or basement, consider if you really need it or if that's just food that's expiring and getting forgotten, because it does use a great deal of energy. So that's our Green Terp actions as they relate to energy. And if you want to see the full checklist of all the different ways you can kind of adopt sustainable practices and be a part of our Green Terp community, of which we have thousands of students, I hope you'll go to the website. And now I will turn it back to Mark to answer any questions that you guys have. So if you have questions about UMD's energy use or what's going on in the state or anything that he's already covered, he has a lot of information, especially, as it relates to UMD's energy systems. What are some strategies that are under consideration for transitioning away from fossil fuels and reducing our carbon footprint? So if you have any questions, please share them.
And yeah, I didn't even touch on UMD's energy. UMD is the university is using some of the same strategies that actually I just recommended. That the switching to clean power, for instance, the university made a commitment back in 2014, if I remember correctly, that by 2020, 100% of the electricity that we get from the grid would be renewable. And I'm happy to say that we met that commitment as of this year. So 100% of the electricity that comes in from the grid that the university uses as of this year is from wind and solar. And that is not all of the electricity that we use as a campus. We have on campus a combined heat and power plant. So that's a natural gas plant that generates the steam that we use to heat the campus and actually to drive our chillers, so that it's providing heating and cooling and electricity production simultaneously. So that's a very efficient process, but of course it's still burning natural gas. So that is our largest source of CO2 despite its efficiencies.
Mark, can you give us an update regarding, I think the SGA had made kind of a petition for the university to accelerate its commitment to carbon neutrality from 2050 to sooner. Do you have any updates on that?
Only that, so in 2018, the SGA unanimously supported a resolution that the university should achieve carbon neutrality by 2025. Our current carbon neutrality deadline is 2050. As of 2018, we've cut our carbon footprint in half. So, there's still a long way to go to achieve carbon neutrality. The University Sustainability Council in May endorsed the SGA's plan and suggested that the university should reset its carbon neutrality target to 2025. That is now a council recommendation that is, has made it to the president's desk. But as you can imagine, President Pines is grappling with a lot of things, mostly COVID response. So we haven't had a response yet from the president's office, but that recommendation from the Sustainability Council, has made it to the president's office. We're awaiting a response. My understanding is that the SGA is currently working on asking formally for President Pines to respond to. Oh, and wait, Nina just updated us. Nina, by the way, who's on this call, is the undergrad representative on the Sustainability Council, so she can probably fill us in more. But she just said SGA passed the resolution urging the university to move carbon neutrality to 2025. Resolution authorizes SGA to write a letter. SGA is currently drafting a letter to President Pines. So hopefully we'll have a follow-up from the president's office, perhaps by the end of 2020 on this.
So since we committed to carbon neutrality, how much have we reduced our emissions from that date?
Yeah, so it's we've reduced it 50%, and a lot of that, most of that had to do with shifting to 100% renewable grid supplied electricity. We became the first large university that we know of in the world to offset all of our air travel emissions. 2 years ago, the students agreed to use a portion of the sustainability fund to offset all emissions associated with undergrad student commuting. And of course, we've been working on improving the energy efficiency of campus, so on and so forth. So there are a number of things that have amounted to that 50% reduction, but those are some of the bigger items.
I have a question about the Maryland state policy about having all of the energy on the grid be clean by 2040.
Yeah.
What does clean energy mean? Does that mean only renewable energy, or could that also mean fossil fuel plants that are extremely efficient, like our combined heat and power?
Yeah, so that is actually exactly the topic of debate. So the Governor Hogan has a proposal called the CARES program that says 100% clean electricity by 2040, but that still allows for, let's say natural gas power plants with carbon capture and storage. So it's a carbon neutrality, it's a net zero emissions look at the energy system. There's a competing proposal that I think has some of our Democratic lawmakers in the state behind it that is targeting 100% renewable power by 2040. And so that is 100% renewable, and renewable there is a tighter definition, of course, of the sources have to actually be renewable sources, wind and solar, significant battery storage of those sources. So those are two competing proposals that are likely to be battled out in the 2021 legislative session in Annapolis.
Another question I have is if students want to get involved in advocacy around the transition to clean energy and addressing climate change, are there any student groups on campus that work to that end?
There certainly are, and actually I'll just flag some statewide groups. The Maryland League of Conservation Voters is a great organization to plug into. The Chesapeake Climate Action Network, Sierra Club Maryland chapter. I mean, all of these organizations keep tabs on very critical legislative actions in Annapolis across a range of environmental issues, but with special attention on climate, especially for the CCAN, the Climate Action Network. You know, they've got more of a narrow focus on climate. But if you're LinkedIn, and I suggest, you know, connect with one of those organizations, if not all of them, and they will notify you through, you know, January through April about, you know, critical bills that are in the legislature and opportunities to reach out to lawmakers. And I have to say, if you get one of those notifications, act quickly, because it often means that organization has found out that literally the next day there'll be a hearing. Some committee is scheduled to discuss a bill, and it's so critical that you weigh in that process. You know, I can tell you in my limited exposure to this, the lobbyists always have time to make it to those meetings. You know, when the lawmakers are dealing with climate legislation, they are going to receive public comment from a handful of you know, fossil fuel interests in the state. That needs to be counterbalanced with other voices, right? So especially now that these meetings are online, it's easier than ever to, you know, log in, attend that Zoom. You know, often public comments are limited to 2 minutes or so in any case. So, you know, you take 30 seconds and say, I think this is really important because blank. And that matters. You know, contacting your lawmakers matters. They will do what they think their constituents want often.
Hey, Mark, I've got a question for you.
Yep.
Great presentation. This is a question that I get from a lot of my students, and it really pertains to the University of Maryland campus as an example of the United States. Virtually all the new buildings that have been built at the University of Maryland, let's say for the last 10 years, are very sustainable, highly rated LEED Silver, LEED Gold. But the overwhelming majority of the buildings on the campus, as well as around the country, are not. So is the University of Maryland doing anything to focus on the non-sustainable rated buildings, which is the overwhelming majority of the buildings that are really very inefficient? I know there may be some financial and political challenges, but I just thought I'd bring that up because the students every semester keep asking me the same question over and over. Why isn't there more focus on the existing buildings on campus and around the country?
Yeah, we really need more of a focus on the existing buildings. So and taking this to a national scale for a second, you know, our bigger challenge on achieving these decarbonization things at the state level or nationally really has a lot more to do with retrofitting our existing buildings than it has to do with new buildings. You know, when we build a new building on campus, you're right, Neil, and good to see you, by the way, that it's, you know, we build to green building standards. Although I should say that a lot of our new buildings are more energy intensive than the buildings that they may have replaced. Some of our older buildings, because of the way that they were designed or the activities in those buildings, simply are less energy intensive, despite the fact that they were built in an era that had, you know, lower energy efficiency standards. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but I agree fully. We need to focus on retrofitting our old buildings. The Governor Hogan signed an executive order for all state facilities, including university facilities, that for existing buildings, we need to decrease energy consumption at least 10% by 2029, or roughly, decrease by at least 1% annually in our existing buildings. Truthfully, I wish that order would have gone a little bit further. I don't think a 1% energy reduction annually is perhaps an ambitious enough target, but it's at least good that all state facilities are required to meet that, and that executive order language is expected to make it into legislation to firm it up in law this year. Anyhow, recognizing that we're a minute before noon, the scheduled end time, there's more I could say on that, but I just generally I agree. There needs to be a whole lot of focus on our existing buildings, our existing homes across the country, our existing commercial buildings, and the Biden administration, in their climate plan, pointed that out and pointed out a target, perhaps by the end of the administration, of retrofitting, I forget now, like 4 million buildings nationwide, which I would say probably still isn't enough, but it's a good start.
Great. Before we wrap up, we just want to say quickly that we really appreciate all of you guys taking the time to reflect on and discuss and hopefully learn something new about sustainability, and that we hope you pass it forward and talk to your friends and families, with the Thanksgiving and Diwali and various holidays coming up. If you're spending time with family, you can let them know about transitions they could make in their households, or discuss, your passion for sustainability. But there has been some research that we've seen around what's the most effective ways of influencing change and what are some ways that can backfire. So we just encourage you guys to ask questions and listen, and share your own perspectives, but maybe not just tell people directly what to do or what to think, or necessarily devolve into arguing, but really share why you care, what your experience from maybe not caring or not taking action to getting involved has been, and just avoiding, judgment, shame, guilt tripping, lecturing, because those things can backfire and shut down the folks you're talking to from being open to the topic that you want to discuss. So we hope that you feel more prepared to be a champion for sustainability, and that you will share your passion with others and encourage others to be a part of this movement and culture shift that we need. So thank you guys. Thank you, Mark. Thank you all for your questions and your participation. And we hope we'll see you at the next one.